Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a movie search portal using React. So for example, if you search here like Invincible, you will see the movie's results. You'll see the title, the date was released, the synopses, a link to IMDb, and also a link to watch the trailer on YouTube. It just searches Invincible trailer, so you can watch the trailer on YouTube. It also has a feature to detect errors. So if you look for like a random word, it will say movie not found error. And let's search for something else like wonderful. It will show you the movies for wonderful. I've used this Bootswatch theme here called Darkly just because I'm not a UI styling expert. So we'll just use a UI framework that's very easy to use. So now the first step, what we'll do is if you look over here, this is how you can create a React app. You can just come to this website, look at the instructions on how to download NPM. This just comes with NPM, and then install it on your command line. But once you have it in your system, all you have to do is copy this command in a workspace. So I've gone ahead and went to the folder where I want this app, and I pasted in the command to create the app, call it tag MoviePortal, and then once it's created, I'd want to cd into tag MoviePortal. Alright, once the command is done, what you'll want to do now is open this folder in VS Code. So once the folder is open, just go ahead and open the terminal and hit npm start. This will start up the server, and you can come over here and see that this is the new default React app that it generated. Now we're going to start working on it. So the first thing we're going to do is just get rid of some boilerplate files. So the way React works, just a quick overview, is that in public you have index.html. This is your app that gets deployed. So if you want to change the title of the app, I'm going to call it tag MoviePortal, like the analytic guy MoviePortal. And then there's just a div with an ID root. And then what React does, if you look over here at index.js, it finds the root and makes that the root of the React DOM, which is the React document object model, and then renders this component called app, which is the entry React point for your website. And then in app, right now, it's just this thing over here, which is what you see here. So we'll start modifying this as we go. Now, the files that you don't really need over here for now is we can remove logo, this index CSS, app test, and app CSS. So just go ahead and remove those 4 files. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go in App.js. We'll just remove all the imports. We will remove all of this stuff, and we'll just create an empty div and put like hello world in here. Oh, there's still some issues. You'll also have to remove this index import, and now you can see that this just shows hello world. So what we're going to do next is install Bootswatch so we can get some of these nice headers and navigation in our app. Don't close this terminal. Let's create a new tab. Over here, what you're going to do is save 2 libraries. So npm install bootstrap --save, and this will install Bootstrap and update your package.json to include it as a dependency in your project. And once that's done, we'll do the same for Bootswatch, which is the theme library for our UI. Okay, now once those 2 are done, we can come here and import Bootswatch and Bootswatch. I just looked this up somewhere, and this is how you do it. So there's the JavaScript and the CSS. So that's all imported. Now we'll come into our app and start building the app. So the first thing we want to do is we'll create our like navigation header. So usually React works with the concept of like components. So you can break your app down into different components and bring them together in the page. So we'll create like a header component. This doesn't exist, so it's just going to be an error for now. For the body, we'll create a div with a class name of container. This is just another Bootstrap thing that creates like a nice body with margins on the left and right. And over here we'll have like a movies portal component. So that's done. Now obviously our app will still be erroring because we don't have these components created. So let's go ahead and do that. So over here Usually I create a folder called components, and you can create subfolders as you want, but we'll create first a header.js component and another file called MoviePortal.js component. We'll just start by making them really simple components. So we can just put something as simple as this for the header and something very similar for MoviePortal, and then you can see that our app is still erroring out because we haven't imported them. So we'll just go ahead and import them over here. So you can see now the imports are fixed. Now let's see what it's complaining about. Okay, that was just a propagation issue. When I refreshed the page, it started working. So you can see we have just, two components. They look very ugly. But now we can go into our header and start making an actual header like we saw in the start of the video. So what I do is I go to Bootswatch. I just copied the code over here, and you can remove these other components that you don't need. We just need this nav bar with saying, tag MoviePortal. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. So here is basically this header. It's literally just all copy pasted Bootstrap, but this is the main thing over here which tells it the app name. So now if we go to our MoviePortal, we can see we have a nice little header. So that's our header component. And one thing to note that in React, when we return something from a component, it has to return just one tag. Like we can't have another sibling tag here, like below this. And usually we either group them in a div, or you can group them in like a dummy React tag, but the return statement should just be one tag at the top level. So anyway, now that we have the header, let's go ahead on our MoviePortal. So the first thing we'll do on our MoviePortal is create that nice search bar that we saw at the start. So again, this is just Bootstrap magic to create a row and then something that spans the entire row. But over here, this is the main thing where we created a text input saying search movie. So you can see it over here. It says search movie. Now, when the user types something like umbrella or wonderful, we need to be able to capture this input and prevent the page from loading like you see. So let's go ahead and do that next. So basically, React has this concept of state variable. So we'll create a state variable to capture our search input text. So this is the syntax over here. React has this useState hook, and what it does is it returns you two things. One is the value of the state, and one is a function to change the state. And the reason this is useful because anytime you call this change state function, it will re-render the div. So then any part over here that uses this search input text field automatically re-renders and gets the new value. So what we want to do is set the value of this text field to the search input text. So we're going to do that by saying value equals search input text. So that means whatever value this is set to, that will be the value over here. Now with just this, you'll notice that search input text is always empty. So even if you try to type in here, like I'm trying to type, nothing happens because it's forcing it to be empty. So what we want to do now is anytime we change the search input text, we need to call the set search input text. So this is how you can do it, saying on change set search input text target.value. So now when you see, if we type in something like hello, what React is doing is anytime this changes, it sets the search input text, and then the search input text variable changes because that's what this thing allows us to do. And then that's set to the value here. So that's how this change is working. And that's why it's no longer stuck on an empty thing. Now the next thing we need to do is when the user hits enter, capture this text, because right now you see when I hit enter, it just refreshes the page, which is not what we want. So let's go ahead and capture the entered text. So we'll just call it entered search text. So again, we're using a state because we're going to use this entered text to maybe display it or call the API. And then what we want to do is when the form is submitted, we want to set this entered search text variable and then maybe just display it somewhere at the bottom. So here we have it. What we did is on submit, we set the function saying on search text enter. So whenever the form is submitted, it goes over here. Now this prevents it from refreshing the page, right? So it prevents the default action. And what we do is we set our entered search text variable to the search input text at that time. We're not showing this anywhere, so let's just go ahead and display that somewhere at the bottom. Now remember, React doesn't allow multiple components at the top level to be returned, so we're going to wrap this in what we call a React fragment. So it's just one component at the top. And then over here, I'm just going to show the entered search text. So now if you search a movie saying umbrella and you hit enter, it will show umbrella, which is the entered search text. And as you change this, like wonderful, this doesn't change, but only when you hit enter, this changes. So this allows us to capture what we inputted. So now the next thing we're going to do is actually send this search input text to some kind of movie API and then get back the results. This is OMDB API is an open movie database. You can get an API key for free from here and then use it like this. So this is what we're going to use. We're going to first search the movie, which allows us to search by movie with a search term. And then when we get back the response, there's going to be some IMDb IDs and stuff in it. And then we're going to call, for each of the search results, we're going to call the by ID API to get like the plot, the synopses, and the release date and other stuff like that. Yeah, let's get right into that. So first what we'll do is we'll create a new folder for our API calls, right? And then over here we'll have a new file saying fetch movies. Now over here we're going to have this fetch movies function. So here's a simple fetch movies implementation. It takes in the search text, a movie callback, and an error callback. So when it's done fetching movies, we'll call the movies callback. When it get an error, it will call the error callback. So we get the response from this API using the search API, and this is my API key, and we just put type movie, so we only get movies. And then we await. This has to be an async function. And then as soon as the data comes back, for now I'm just logging it, but eventually we'll want to call our movies callback with the movie details, and then our error callback with null. And if the response is an error, and actually over here I should also just set movies callback to empty. So now if we go over here in our movies portal, we would have to call this fetch movies. So we go fetch movies, and then we send the search input text, because this would be the text when they hit enter. And then the movies callback, we just say set movies, which we'll need to have in a state variable. So we'll need a state variable saying const movies set movies. And we'll need another state variable called error. We'll work on displaying these for a second, but basically when we fetch movies, we want the movies callback to be set movies. So they pass in the new movies into the set function, which will cause, again, movies to re-render. And then we'll have set error as the error callback, which will allow us to display any error. And over here, actually, what I'll just do is instead of logging it, I will just send data.search directly into movies callback, because this is already a list of movies. And over here, what we'll print is we'll just print json.stringify movies and error. We'll format this later, but just so we can see what our API returns. So if you come over here, you search for umbrella, you can see that the entered search text is umbrella. This is what we got back from the API, and there's no error. If you look for like some garbage thing, you'll see that this is the entered search text, this is movie, and it just says movie not found. So our API is giving us everything we need right now. But one thing you notice is that this doesn't give you the plot. This just gives you title, the year, the IMDb ID, and the image. But it doesn't give you the plot, which is something that we want to display. So what we'll do is in our fetch movies function, we'll update this to also fetch the plot. And the way we'll do that is first, we will map all of the search results into another promise, another async function, which is fetch movie details. We'll give it the IMDb ID and the error callback. And then we'll wait for all of them to complete. and save the result of this in MovieDetail. So they should give us like the populated movies, and then use that to call movies callback. So now let's go ahead and write this fetch movie details function. So here's fetch movie details, very similar to the previous function. We've taken the ID of the movie that we want to call back, which is from the previous response, and an error callback. And then we hit the other API I showed, which is this one, with the ID, and we say plot equals full, so it gives us the full plot, and again your API key. If the data returns successfully, you just return the data, otherwise you throw an error, and then the error will be caught and set in the error callback. So with this should give us a more populated movie list. So now if I search for umbrella, you can see that it's a much longer set of results, and I actually have the plot as well in here, right here. So now we just need to display this in a nice format. So let's go back to our MoviePortal. So first, let's take care of displaying any errors, right? So if there's any errors, the way you can do that in React is we have a state variable called error. So if error is not null, you can just simply do error and then you can show, we'll create like an error alert component, which takes in two variables. So you can pass variables in the component, which is coming from here. So the component automatically re-renders if this variable changes, right? So you can send in the error message, and we can send in the entered search text as well, just so it can, show the error with the correct search text. So this will create an error alert if an error is present. And then if we have more than one movies, so we can say if movies.length is greater than 0, then we can just display that little paragraph we showed where it says showing results. So yeah, I just created a paragraph. I used text.light showing movies.length movies for entered search text. So this will just show like how many results we have for that search term. And now it's complaining, obviously, because we don't have our error alert component built. So let's go ahead and build that. And again, for this one, I'll just inspire it from this error alert that we see over here, right here, and I'll just fill it in. So here we have error alert. It takes in the error and the search term as we passed in earlier. This is how you pass parameters in React to a component. You have to put them in these like object braces. And then we just say, oh snap, search term resulted in error. And so now, and I think we named it search term over here. So let's just use search term equals entered search text. Okay, we still need to import it. So I just let VS Code do that. And so now if we search for something like garbage, we can see, oh snap, it resulted in movie not found. But you notice it's too close to the text field above. So let's just create some space. So I added a line break. Now that looks much better. So that shows any errors. Now, if there is a success, we want this text to show. So let's test that real quick. So you can see, yes, showing 10 movies for umbrella. Obviously, the movies look ugly. Now, what we'll do, since we have our movies object, we can see over here what different attributes it has, like title, released, and so on. So what we'll do is we'll create a movie detail component that can display one movie, and then we'll just loop through all the movies over here to show each of the movies, right? So we'll say movies.map for each movie. We call into a movie detail component. We set the key to IMDb ID. This is just something that React needs when you're looping through a list of movies. And then we pass in the movie over here. So now we just need to create the movie detail component. I'll go ahead and create that here and then just start with a simple implementation. So this is just a simple implementation of MovieDetail where we just log the movie. Now coming back to our movies portal, we obviously need to make sure it's imported. So once it's imported, you can see that each of our movies now are logged over here separately from this movie detail component. Now to style this, I just, again, put the image on the left and the card on the right. And for the card, I just referenced this card component example over here. So let me just go ahead and put that in. So again, most of this is Bootstrap magic, but basically we have a row. Each row in Bootstrap has like 12 spaces. So we'll take 2 spaces or 2 columns for the movie poster, which is just an image, right? And we have poster attribute in our movies. And then we have the other remaining 10 spaces for the card, for the details. On the title, I just put an H3 with the movie title. Again, movie comes from the function component. And then I put the release here as the subtitle. And then for the card text, I just put the movie plot. And for the IMDb link, I just created a link to IMDb with movie.imdb. And for trailer, we just go on YouTube, search for movie title, and then trailer, right? And that will open YouTube with the watch trailer button. So this is, again, very simple. Let's see how that looks like. So if you come over here, you can see all our movies are beautifully displayed with umbrella, the title, the year, and everything. If you click here, it goes to IMDb. If you click here, it goes to YouTube. And I can search for something like wonderful, and that results in an error because I spelled it wrong, and wonderful results in results. And yeah, one minor optimization here is like this thing updates before the results update. So let's say fetching your movies takes time. We already update the entered text before. So like any old displays will still show the entered text before we set our movies. So the way I can fix that is to call like a finally function where this fetch movies, when it's done fetching, whether it's success or error, will perform this action, right? Which is setting the text. So we only want to set the text after either the movies are fetched or the errors fetched, so that we don't update the text before we update the displays, right? So that's just a small change. And so in our fetch movies function, we can say finally callback. So after all this is done, no matter what the result, we want to call our finally callback at the end, whether it's success or error. And so that's just a small optimization to kind of make sure in case your API loading takes time, it doesn't mess up with your display. So again, we can look for umbrella. So now a few things you can kind of change on this, like as a exercise for yourself, is you can add pagination. Right now we only load the first 10 movies, the first page, but the API allows you to specify a page number. So you can try doing that on your own. You can also like play around with TV series. Right now we're only doing movies. In our API call, we explicitly set fetch movies to true. So you can play around with like TV series and displaying episodes and seasons. You can also change the look and feel. Like if you're really into front end, I just use Bootstrap, but if you want to use like other frameworks like MUI or Tailwind, you can play around with those. You can also add a loading. So let's say if the API takes long, you want to show some kind of loading message, you can try that, doing that on your own. So anyway, I hope you learned something about React. I hope you enjoyed building this movie portal, and let me know in the comments how building any of those other features goes for you. And if you'd like to see me build any other React apps, I'm happy to do that. And again, all of this code will be in the description. So all of these links that I used and the code will be all in the description. So you can access it from there. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.